Otsu here. Who else would it be? This is Observations with Otsu for May 5th. Hope you've had a good weekend. We have a little bit to discuss here. Not as much as previous weeks, if I'm being honest with you, but I think there's good reason to look at this and say that Bitcoin's going to continue being bullish. In fact, that this might actually escalate and accelerate and kind of get a larger impulse within this quarter. And so we'll talk about that. We'll talk about how this quarter matches up with the other quarters. So if you're unfamiliar with my observations with Otsu videos, we're going to cover the weekly on Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana. We also are going to cover total market cap 1, 2, 3, and then we'll look at Bitcoin dominance as well. Let's go ahead and get started. So if you are new to my channel, first of all, you can like, subscribe. And either whether you are new to my channel or not, I do have a group out there that I have kind of recently did a big changes on. I want to kind of show you this briefly here, maybe 30, 60 seconds on this, and then we can move on to the rest of the video. But this is I do daily analysis videos, so I kind of want to walk through this first. This is the Aroon trading group. This is on Patreon. Those of you that have joined before, you may know this as my Apex group, which is something I did on Discord, migrated to Patreon, thought it would kind of streamline more of the typical user base that tends to look at more high definition videos. Discord's very limited on its resolution in that. So anyway, I just want to kind of go over what I've talked about again, maybe like 60 seconds here. So May the 5th, which this is my most recent video. I actually put this out last night. Probably more May 4th. Going into May 5th. But we have a 13-minute video where we covered a few of these coins here, and there's some extra coins here that we talked about after that, and so that's going to be kind of an idea. I can maybe share some of these, but typically what we usually go over some sort of overview for the day, some sort of topic that I see relevant to the current price, current market conditions, and then we tend to look at anywhere between, usually we average around 4 altcoins or not even necessarily altcoins because we do cover BTC, like 4 coins that could be traded and taken advantage of at the moment of the video. So they are time sensitive. And so somewhere we cover between 4 to 8 coins. Sometimes we cover up to 10. And so you get these pretty much every day. So May 5th, we had one on May the 2nd because I took off for the weekend. I had actually a very special event over the weekend. And so usually this is the Friday video, May 2nd. Usually we cover the weekly coins. So these are the coins that we covered on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then on Friday, we cover them all again to look at a review. One of the reasons I do that is because a lot of people out there will share trades with you, but they won't follow up on them. And I think that's very important. Shows that I am committed to looking at this, but more importantly, I'm not trying to mess around here. Like, these are coins that I actively look at, I actively trade. And so, as you can see here, we looked at Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, XRP, Trump, and Dogecoin on Monday. Tuesday, these coins here, et cetera, et cetera. So this is the kind of lineup that you can look at, and that's not designed to be like, well, I'll just come up with a bunch of coins. These are what I see on the market, okay, and then we take advantage of them, okay. And 2 of the coins that we looked at last week, Bongo did pretty good, okay, and so we can look at that here briefly. I think it's faded since then, but Bongo did pretty well with all this, and so we've taken advantage of Bongo here for the past few weeks, honestly. And then XR, AIXBT went to 68%. So those are a few different things we looked at. Not all. It's not exhaustive, but something that we did look at. And then you can see May 1st. That was the Thursday video. For the April 30th video, we actually looked at some Sui coins, and so that was pretty good that we looked at. And then and I do kind of want to mention this because we are going to try to transition to some thematic coins. So we're going to look at Sui coins, look at Sol coins, look at maybe on the Hype ecosystem or Base, things like that. So we have been doing that more and more. So if you are looking for something like, I don't want to say small cap, but kind of small cap, that's probably that might be something that you're looking forward to. And so this group does include Discord access, which also does have channels for small caps and things like that, where we do look at things, and we have a pretty somewhat of a smaller group to where this is not. It's not like I'm feeding this to like 5,000 people where it's going to just flash pump that, because first of all, I don't have that kind of weight anyway. But second of all, It's you know, as far as I know, I don't think you have to worry about those kind of things, because it's just, I don't know. It's the angle that I approach this is a bit different. I use Aroon, as you guys probably know. I'm one of the only few people, probably one of the only main personalities that use it. I know a lot of my followers use it, and so, and I think that's good. I want to spread the word about Aroon. So that's just an idea there, and other videos, like I said, daily videos, things like that. So that's just something to look forward to if you're interested. I'm gonna leave a link in the description if you're on YouTube, if you're on Twitter. It's gonna be in my bio. Go ahead and check that out. Again, like, subscribe. I do apologize for kind of taking longer than I thought. I never take the intended time that I do. So anyway, let's get to the video. So we're gonna take a look at some Bitcoin stuff. Bitcoin's gonna take the meat of this video. So we're going to look at the Bitcoin dominance chart first and kind of get an idea of what we're looking at. I think this will give us a better context relative to the other coins. And then, to be honest with you, Ethereum and Solana, like Ethereum's still kind of duddish, is not really doing much. And then Solana, it has some potential, but there's not really a lot to work with. So let's go ahead and go to the dominance chart here. Now, some of the terms I'm going to be saying in the dominance chart are going to be a little bit relative. And I say that to say, like, there's not a lot of movement as you would expect from crypto. And I think there's a big deception there. Like Bitcoin can easily go 10, 15% in one candle. It can drop 40% in one candle, as we've seen. If you've been here long enough, you know that it can. Dominance chart, not so much. It really behaves more like gold or the S&P 500 as far as its movement, right? So even from, obviously we're not dealing with price, right? We're dealing with dominance. But even back in, 20th of April to current price, it's only like 1.5% of a move. Doesn't mean that's, again, we're not dealing with prices. So we have to get used to that. Now, I say that to say we've been in a quote unquote down move for the past 2 to 3 weeks, okay, or 2 or 3 days, I should say. That doesn't really necessarily mean anything at first. It can mean something here in the future, though. And so one thing I want to kind of look at, I actually kind of want to go up to the weekly here, because really the dominance chart doesn't make sense to look at lower than the daily. You can't really infer too much day to day. I don't use it day to day. Maybe if you do, just comment and ask me, how you, like, do you take advantage of it, and what way do you take advantage of it? Because I would like to know, honestly. But I usually only look at this as sort of a measure of the market on the weekly. One thing I've talked about before, let me kind of zoom this out a little bit more, sorry, is I can even look at here on the monthly. So for the low end here on this chart, you have like 58, little over 58, almost 59% of the dominance chart. And on the top side, you have 71%. So this has been my gauge. The reason it's been my gauge is because you basically had a double top here with a move to the downside here. So you pretty much have a range to work with. This was respected back in October 2024. So I have a reason to believe that this is somewhat of a respected range of some kind, right? Had that rejection here, pushed up above, and so now we're within this range. Now on the weekly, I've quantified this range as a fib block. We are in the middle of this fib block at about 65%, a little bit over that. So we are currently at 64.74. I'm looking for a midterm rejection here. And so we are getting very close to this rejection point. We do not have a divergence in play here. We are getting close to the 80 marker. I mean, we're still a little bit of ways away. It tends to go. Actually, it has never been. I actually just didn't realize it until now. It has never been really that high. The highest that we've been really is about 76. And I kind of want to cover this. I'm going to go a little bit more down here to like the 72 marker. And there's a reason why I want to do this here. One of the reasons I want to do this is because we spend very little time here. Obviously, we spent here in 2015. This is kind of not really a good sample because the market was just completely different as far as altcoins. And the dominance will move based off of the altcoin exposure. We got to keep that in mind. The other time when we would really approach this was here at the top. Okay, so that was part of the bottoming out and kind of going into more of a mini altcoin run, right? And so obviously COVID was right around this area. And so your other marker here was roughly around here. So back 2023, 2024. And this was really sort of the uptrend going on to the current cycle that we have now. So we're kind of all over the place with the dominance chart. But one thing I keep mentioning that does tend to be true is that when we tend to rally to the upside and then we come back down, when the dominance goes lower, the market performs better as a whole, as far as like the total market cap three, like altcoins in particular, tend to run pretty good. And so we should not be surprised about this. I posted a thread on X earlier today about Bitcoin on the monthly with Aroon. I'm going to post a lot more Aroon stuff. Probably my goal is to get maybe like one thread out every single day, and so we'll see how that works. But one thing I wanted to mention is that with Bitcoin on the monthly, once you get an Aroon cross, and we'll talk about that later in the Bitcoin section, it tends to rally and it continues to rally for a long time. Okay, and so one thing that we can look at on the monthly, and the video I posted was for the past 639 days, Bitcoin has been in an uptrend. That's very hard for people to understand. And in fact, I think I actually will go to that, and I'll come back here because I want to mention on the monthly, we have been in an uptrend for 630 days, roughly. So 639. This is hard for people to fathom. Now, the reason I want to say this is an uptrend is because one, we obviously pushed to the upside. We consolidated against the Aroon band. So the Aroon band is a way to look at how the trend and momentum affect each other. We bounced against the band, which means the momentum continued to the upside. Did not have a divergence. We came back into the mid. We technically did not close in the band. We actually pushed to the above. So this is still a momentum continuation. Okay, we have not bounced it technically into this. I think I posted that we did. It's very very close. But mainly, we are inside the band. We did not close inside the band, but we did come out of it, and so that's a good sign. This is all a good sign of bullish continuation. I think we have a big bullish impulse coming up. I don't think it's coming this week. I don't think it's even coming this month, but I do think it's coming sometime this year, probably in Q4. Is my guess. I think we're going to have a good Q2. I think we're going to have a choppy Q3 and a really fantastic Q4. That's what I'm thinking. But I wanted to mention this is because a lot of people in particular have really been freaking out. Absolutely have just been chaotically freaking out about their portfolios, about the markets, trying to look at macro, trying to look at all these things. The Bitcoin's been an uptrend. It's been an uptrend for over 600 days, over 630 days. And right now, the data shows that there's no reason that that can't continue. It should continue to do so. So that's something I kind of want to mention. Now, I will go back to the dominance chart, and then we'll switch back to the weekly here. So, again, the main focus with this is I'm looking for this midterm rejection. If we can get this rejection, I do think market wide we are going to see a move. I think that Bitcoin will move higher. It will go up past 100,000, probably 115, 120,000. I think altcoins will run as well. And there's a big misconception that people think the Bitcoin will go down in price if the dominance goes down. That's actually the opposite typically is what happens. You tend to get a rally market wide. Actually, it's not necessarily not true that like how should I say this? Bitcoin can go up in price when the dominance goes up. Okay, so I wasn't saying that it won't. What I'm saying is, the price doesn't necessarily go down in Bitcoin because the altcoins have to go up in price if the dominance does also go down. See what I'm saying? So basically, what's happening from a supply and demand standpoint, at least in previous cycles, this will get less over time because cycles have changed. That money and volume and liquidity from Bitcoin and Bitcoin related functions will go into altcoins. Okay. Now we will see how this changes this cycle. So far, this has been a completely Bitcoin dominant cycle. Very interesting observation, honestly. I don't think a lot of people give credit to how dominant Bitcoin has really been. It basically almost 100%, right? Really from 2022 to current. Oh, I'm way off, like 65%, 64, 65%. So that's pretty good. We went from basically going into the sub 40, high 30s to mid 60s. And I think that that's pretty good. What I was thinking? I was thinking 30 and 60, I think is what I was thinking. So maybe not, whatever. But this is a very dominance heavy cycle, whereas this has not been before. And one thing, you know, I'm not here to say like this time is different. I think that's a very naive way to approach things because one, there are some things that keep the same every cycle. But also two, that frame of reference is a really is a very rookie way to look at things. How you should be looking at this instead is that the market share has always been changing every cycle. We know this. We know this from way back in 2014. This has been going down ever since. We'll probably never get back to 99% dominance. I don't think we'll ever get back to that. I mean, we might. I think there's a case for 80s. I think there is a case, but maybe not yet. Um, but one of the reasons we're increasing so much the cycle is because a lot of Bitcoin related functions are becoming mainstream. So, like ETFs, for example, Bitcoin Reserve, for example, those things are going to increase the market share for Bitcoin dominance. So, we'll see how that goes. Overall, I think your big takeaway again is if we reject here, look for a rejection here at the Bitcoin dominance chart that should signal to start putting more exposure into altcoins. I think that's the biggest takeaway, and sometimes for most of you, the only takeaway that you should get from dominance. You can't necessarily predict price with dominance. So anyway, that is the Bitcoin dominance chart. Let's go ahead. I actually want to go continue the market cap section and go to the total trio. All right, let's go to the total market cap. We're going to stay on the weekly here. One thing I really want to keep in mind with the weekly is about 2 weeks ago, approximately, um, we broke above the weekly market here. I kind of need to stretch this up just a little bit. And so roughly here at about like the 2.84 trillion marker, we broke above that. We're getting really close to the 3 trillion, I'm sorry, 2.89, 29, what have you. We also broke above the Aroon band just slightly here. You can't really see it very much. So I can kind of zoom in just a little bit. We did break above that zone. We actually held that band for the weekly. This is one reason I created this band, is because this does tend to hold the market. Sometimes it doesn't, like this. This is a very distributive range. Or maybe not distributive, but more so like a consolidative range. And so when it trades like this back and forth, you don't want to get involved. You want to wait for the bands to continue to the upside, okay? When it trades like this is a good sign. This is a sign of respect. And so when the markets are respective like this, you can expect smoother price actions, better trade opportunities, things like that. Okay, as far as the Aroon, we had a bullish consolidation leading to a bullish wedge. RSI has flipped on the 50, so this is pretty good so far. We don't have a bullish cross on this, so the bullish trend is not in play yet. The bullish momentum is with a bearish trend. When you have a bearish trend with the bullish momentum, as I said yesterday in my premium videos, and go ahead and check it out if you want. I posted that this is like, you know, the bears to the upside. This is like them having the football or whatever sport you want, right? They have possession of the ball or can get ready to score, but the Bulls have really good defense. Okay, they don't have the ball, but they are getting some sort of more morale boost because the opposing team is not scoring. That's how that is presented. When we can get into a cross afterwards, the Bulls would get the trend and the momentum. And so that's the thing. And so I don't think a lot of people really understand that. And I really think I really need to do like a dedicated, like, explain it like I'm five kind of video about how the Aroon works like that. Because this has been one of my defining ways to use Aroon to calculate my trades. Just because you have the trend does not mean you have the momentum. Okay, just how you look at trends as either bullish, bearish, or neutral, you also should look at momentum as bullish, bearish, or neutral. And both of those things will work together. Sometimes there's a bullish trend, but there's no bullish momentum. And trades can go up, prices can go up, but that doesn't mean you should trade them. Doesn't mean there's an advantage in that. Whereas if the bullish trend is there and the bullish momentum is there, that's where you get accelerations like this. Okay. So that's how that works. So sometimes you can get a fluctuation. You can get a bull trend, bearish momentum, bearish trend, bullish momentum, neutral trend, bearish, what have you. Any combination of those six. And perhaps I'll do an infographic on that. I think that sounds like something I want to do. So we'll see how that goes. One thing I do know with the total market cap, obviously this includes Bitcoin. You have that reclaim. I'm quite looking for a jump to the upside in terms of market cap. And so we got a little bit of gap here for this trend. I wouldn't be surprised if we actually increase up a little bit and then consolidate underneath the 3 just a little bit longer. And then we start to break maybe in June. And so I think that's good. I think we could maybe get more of like an end of second quarter kind of pump up, and then we actually fade a lot of that in the third quarter to where the third quarter ends up being probably a down month, but probably a choppy month also. So anyway, that's the total one. Let's go to total two. I won't spend too much time on these because I've already spent a lot of time covering Bitcoin dominance with this. So obviously this excludes Bitcoin, and you can see how the market is much more droopier here. This is why the Bitcoin dominance is so important here. And so really the dominance has been increasing ever since the time that we've been dropping down here. So this is basically Christmas Eve. Drop down here has the fade on the midline here. So we're kind of in no man's land. This is honestly, we'll get to total three in a second, but what I want you to know is that Ethereum is probably the main reason this is so. Ethereum has been very lackluster in its performance, very critical. We have the bullish consolidation and wedge, but we don't have the RSI momentum. You can see how this makes a difference. Okay, so we have this pretty much the same wedge and consolidation on Bitcoin and on total market cap, but we have no momentum change on the RSI. And this is a good way to say that Ethereum, read between the lines. You got to read between the lines. Ethereum is just lackluster with this. Let's go ahead and go to total three and show you an even bigger difference without Bitcoin and Ethereum. See how this is a little bit weak, but it's still going to, instead of going through the midline, it's actually going through the higher range on this. And this is also critical. We have the same consolidation wedge formation right here, but we're a little bit higher on the RSI, not quite 50. We actually reclaimed it and then we lost it. And so we need to reclaim that again. Based off of my just experience and back, just I don't want to, how should I say this, back testing, what have you, based on how often I've seen things in the past, this usually does come down. And so we might go back to like seven, in the 700 ranges. Not going to be, I don't think it's going to be too serious. It's like what, 3%, probably even lower to like 5. And so I think, see, I'm kind of guesstimating on this, but based off of my experience. See, the thing is, I haven't looked for this in the past, but one thing I can kind of guesstimate is that I think the alt market will still be okay. I think it just depends. So, like, certain coins will do well, certain coins won't do well, which is always going to be the case, or for the most part. But I think that's going to be the arbitrage here. Like, I think the chart will still go down, but that doesn't mean your altcoins will go down. It's going to depend on your altcoin of choice. I still think it's worth being a little bit more picky with altcoins. I'm still mainly focused on higher main alts or momentum based alts. And so that's why, like, looking at Ethereum and Solana and Sui, like that Sui private video that I kind of referenced, is that those are important because if Sui does good, which it's currently doing pretty good here, and let's just get rid of this here, but Sui, if it performs well relative to other coins, the ecosystem, the coins in the ecosystem should theoretically do better as well. So just something to keep in mind. So anyway, that is the total 1, 2, 3. Let's get into Bitcoin finally. All right, so let's get started here on Bitcoin. We're going to talk about the weekly. Had quite our fill of Bitcoin dominance and total market cap so far. So what we need to know, we actually had a push to the upside a couple weeks ago, almost roughly, the beginning of 2 weeks, I should say. As far as Aroon goes, we still have that bullish consolidation leading into a wedge. It's a little premature compared to the dominance chart and the total market cap charts. And then RSI is completely above. As far as price action goes, your current level to the top side is obviously 104.4. You have the low end of this range is about 93.1. We are kind of creeping into that. We actually broke above that here on last week's close. So we're doing a little bit better. We're kind of inching our way through this cycle, or through this block, I should say. And here's how that looks like with the fib block. And so I wanted to emphasize this is when we go into the zone, I want to really do the fib block to kind of give you a good move. Kind of tried to test the mid-range, got pretty well rejected, and so now we're kind of stuck here in limbo. So what we need to know is this mid-range right here, and I'm just going to highlight it just to give you an idea of what I'm looking at. This is probably going to be some sort of key reaction range. It already kind of is from last week. What we also need to know is this band here on the top of the band, this is also going to be a respected range. And so this is what I'm looking at. So from a trend perspective, this is going to be our range. And I got rid of the fib block. This is kind of what we're looking at. Okay. And so if I re-add the fib block as far as a range bound block, this is what we looked at. We're touching the mid right here. And so everything's looking pretty good. We're basically in a range within a range. And so this is one reason we're kind of respecting here is because this is the midway point between the top side resistance and the bottom side trend support. And so that's a key difference. So I'm looking at this from a trend based perspective from the price action. And so that's one reason why we're having a little hesitancy here. I still think this range is going to work out at some point between 99,000 to the upside and 90.6 thousand to the low side. So that's what we're working with Bitcoin. Other than that, there's really not much else to show on Bitcoin because we're pretty still trend bound. And this is what really surprised me. Like a lot of people are really just doom and gloom, but we've been trend bound. We really have. I mean, we had a little bit of a move right here where we dropped below this, but as far as price action goes, I mean, we're still way above it. We actually retested very, very, very close to the 74,000 range. And so this is looking pretty good. Do we need to retest this? I don't necessarily think so. I think this is what I would call close enough. Okay, and so we'll see how that goes. But we're still in a trend-ish move. I talked about this on the monthly. Okay, that's something that that's why I posted that earlier on X, is because I think that's important. On the 2 week, this is also very trendy. Okay, we had a little bit of move here where we wanted to reload, but we reclaimed the band right here. We have a low bearish wedge here. It's already at 50%, so it's probably unless we get a drop down below this level, below the lows. Let's go to 73,000 this week, or yeah, the next 6.5 days. This isn't going to happen. Then we're going to get a low bearish cross, which means the momentum is going to, if bears somehow do get momentum back, it's going to be low. And so the bulls will have a chance to continue this for the rest of the year. Okay. And so forget about the tariffs, forget about all the news, forget about, Cinco de Mayo, whatever, kind of bullcrap they're trying to tell you as far as how, politically this person is or whatever it may be. Okay, FOMC going on this week. There's a lot of other things going on. And so I honestly ignore all of it. I ignore all of it. Okay. What I want to know is, what are the charts telling me right now? What has it told me in the past? And what will it tell me in the future based off of what it's telling me now and in the past? That's all I'm doing. And I think that's really all you need to do. So anyway, we'll kind of go with that. So I do want to go to Ethereum. I think we spent enough time with Bitcoin, and you get the general gist of things. I think we will probably kind of range bound. Maybe I'll go back to it here. I think we will range bound. Actually, I want to share two trades that I've been looking at as well. This is the daily time frames for these trades. I think these are trades that we've been talking about in observations with Otsu. They're going pretty good so far. We don't have a divergence here. I still need to wait for this to confirm or not. If this comes down, I think I'm going to cancel these trades. And so they're doing pretty good. There's about 8R between them, probably 6R what's it called? In like pending, I guess. And so we're going to kind of wait this out and see. But I do want to go back and look at the daily here on Bitcoin. Actually quite forgot about it. Had a lot of things going on. So we had a little bit of consolidation here. Had your push up to the upside. Now we've rejected here for the daily. Now this is concerning, despite the fact that I think the weekly looks pretty good. I do think we might get a drop down here. Now we lost the mid, and so this is going to be pretty weak. Okay, now the good news is we are still above the failure level, which is about 93,600, a little bit lower than that. But we're also within the band. So if we close within the band, this is going to be very concerning. I don't say, and when I say concerning, I don't think we're going to like 50,000. So what I'm looking at is locally with the range is going to be concerning. And so I think we could drop down to about 91, low 91s. I think would be kind of the worst case scenario here. I did look at other targets in my premium video. So if you're looking for other things, I gave more, mainly just extra scenarios. If you know, because for this video I give you like A, B, and C, but for the premium I give like D, E, F, G. That I go through a lot of other scenarios, and so it's a much more personalized approach with that. But as far as this goes, this is the main range that we're looking at, and we'll see how this goes. And so that's pretty much it for Bitcoin. Let's go to Ethereum and Solana. All right, let's go to Ethereum. We're going to cover the weekly here. And so one thing I want to mention, to be honest with you, Ethereum is probably going to be the least updated of the three, but we're going to cover it anyway. We had a drop down here about a month ago, all the way to like 1380, like just upper 13s. I did mention that I think this is the bottom. I still think this is the case. So far, this still is the case. I'm not trying to be right necessarily, but I'm just kind of focusing on what we're doing here. So that so far we had an impulse to the upside. This little range here, this is a daily range. We'll get to in a second. And so this is working out so far so good. It's for the first time in a month, we're trying to see some sort of push up here. It's working so far. We'll see how it goes. Ethereum has been quite disappointing in the past, really for the past couple years. And honestly, I've mentioned this before, but like the first time it hit this range was like 1,500 days ago. Okay, and it's honestly not even that far away from what it did back in 2018. Okay, so this has been one of the most. I honestly think this has been one of the most disappointing coins in the entire crypto ecosystem, like in its history. Okay, it's performed well, and so no doubt about that. So I don't want to give it. I don't want to dog on it too much. But as far as its performance from 2018 until now, it's been very lackluster. There's no reason why we should be down this low in 2025 with Ethereum, and so we'll see how that goes. Aroon has a bullish wedge. It has it really ever since the drop down here. So your marker here at the lows is about April 14th. That's almost exactly where we had the impulse to the upside. That's one reason I was kind of looking at the bottom. There's other reasons too. I do have a video on that if you want to go ahead and search it. It's called Ethereum bottom question mark. So we have a wedge. I still think this is going to continue. And we'll talk about the range bound move here in a second. RSI is completely low, still less than 40. Not the best sign overall. We don't really spend a lot of time under the 40 marker, and I think this is worth considering that usually anything around this range 37 or lower does tend to be a good buy signal. I'm just saying it. Doesn't mean it's going to be profitable right away, but that's something you got to look forward to. So let's go ahead and go to the daily here. Daily, the main focus on the daily is going to be this range. We're kind of just in the middle of this. Nothing really too shocking here. We had to push the upside. We're still holding the mid, which is actually where the band is. Typically, when you get the band by the mid, it's a good sign. It does tend to hold there, and so we'll see how that stays. And you can actually extend it over here. So you had the push here, had the retest at the mid, and so this is a respected range. I would prefer this to hold. Obviously, who wouldn't, right? Unless you're a perma bear, but we'll see how this goes. There's no weakness here. There's no divergence necessarily, but this is just really playing the range here between 1750 and 1863. That's the biggest thing with Ethereum. Let's go ahead and go to Solana, and we'll round out the video. Now with Solana here, it's a very interesting coin here. So first of all, I'm going to cover the indicators. RSI or the Aroon is still at the bullish wedge, like we've talked about before. It consolidated. It actually pushed up in the consolidation instead of the wedge, and that's not necessarily an indicator of either side. RSI is a little bit above versus Ethereum, but still below the 50s, so I don't have that momentum to work with. This is a very difficult chart to chart because this is like your previous range, and you can't really quantify this. This wasn't well respected. This wasn't respected on the top, and not really respected currently. So that's not really a good approach to do that. One thing that we can look at is just look at the current price to the highs and lows. We're still relatively in there, rejecting on the band. Based off my experience, when you reject off the band like this, you do tend to come back. So we might get a touch back here at about 132. This is going to be a weekly, by the way. And so I think that's going to be your interim bounce target area. Obviously, I'd want to get this above that. And I can't make anything, of course, but you do have bearish breaker here, so we could get a retest of about 168. So the 168 marker is going to be where you want to see a reaction. If you're a bull, first of all, you want to see 168. Second of all, you want to see a good follow through. You don't want to see a rejection on that point. So these are two, if you look at this from both of those angles, you have sort of a rejection here at the mid. If you look at this from the low end, it basically is at the mid. And so that's one reason again, that's a good way to kind of navigate, like comparing price action to trend combined. I'm a hybrid trader. I do trend and price action. And so that's one way to do that. And so we'll see how that goes. It's up a little over 1.5% today. Nothing fancy, but this is the weekly time frame, mind you. I think that honestly, I'm kind of 50-50 split. We do have a bullish wedge. We don't have the momentum. Also, like I said, um, the momentum is split. The trend is favoring the bears, so that's why I do think 131 is a possibility. If we can that's probably my leading possibility. If we can get across the mid on the weekly, then I think we can get that 168. So going on the daily here, um, nothing really much else. We lost the mid frame here. And the good news is we actually closed within the band, so you can actually do this one or two ways. We can set up a position here. If it goes up above the band, let's say like right here at 149, you can put your stop loss underneath here. And I teach this in the script. If you're interested in the script, it is available for you to purchase. So 3.25 on this at 20%. So that would be like a long side. And then if the short position, say it closes underneath, your stop loss is going to be a little bit more tighter. You're not going to get as much out of that. You're going to get like a 1.7, 1.8, but that's going to be like a 10 to 11% move. So that's kind of what I'm looking at from both of those standpoints. Again, I don't like the fact that this failed the mid on the daily, but this still is within the band. If it's inside the band, that's neutral. Okay, so we'll see how it goes. We have a low bearish cross probably coming up. The high side of this is going to be 29%, 30%, so that's going to be relatively low. You want the crosses, if they're in your favor, you want them to be 50% or higher. If you don't want them to favor you, you want them 50% or lower, and so or 49% or lower, I should say. So that's how that works. So Solana it could go either way. I'm leaning towards a little bit of a drop down this week, but I also think it definitely has a decent chance. I don't think any of these three have a terrible performance coming up. I just think we're going to get some chop here, and hopefully some upside here by the end of May or mid-May. So we'll see how that goes. So anyway, that is the video. I hope you enjoyed it. A little bit longer video, so I do apologize. Let me know what you think. I'm happy to talk more about this. And go ahead, like, subscribe, check out my Aroon group if you want. I'll see you next time.